Coming up on Network Africa. Minutes after news of his overthrow, Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum says the country's hard-won achievements will be safeguarded. ECOWAS world leaders, United Nations, and the African Union condemn military coup d'etat in Niger. Russian president announces plans to provide free grain to 6 African countries at the start of the Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. It's been quite a day in Niger Republic as news of the overthrow of the government broke out in a dramatic fashion on national TV address by the Nigerian soldiers led by Colonel Amadou Abdramani. But Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum is not letting the coup attempt stop him from expressing his opinions. He says the country's hard-won achievements will be safeguarded, hinting that democracy will still be saved. A statement on the detained leader's account on Twitter partly reads, "All Nigerians who love democracy and freedom will see to it." The foreign minister posted on the same platform calling for all Democrats and patriots to make efforts to defeat this dangerous adventure. Hasumi Masudu was also quoted as saying the elected government was the legitimate and legal authority in Niger. And as we've been reporting, Nigerian soldiers have announced they carried out a coup d'etat in the West African country. Speaking on national television, they said they had dissolved the constitution, suspended all institutions, and closed the nation's borders. President Mohamed Bazoum is being held by the guards and is said to be in good health.
Surrounded by army personnel, army spokesperson Colonel Major Amadou Adraban made the announcement of a military takeover.
We, the Defense Security Forces, meeting within the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CLSP, have decided to put an end to the regime you know. This follows a continuing deterioration of the security situation and poor economic and social governance, reaffirming our commitment to respecting all the commitments entered into by Niger. We reassure the national and international community that the physical and moral integrity of the authorities will be respected in accordance with the principle of human rights.
Adraman also announced the suspension of all institutions, appointing the Secretaries General of Ministries to take over day-to-day business, and saying the defense and security forces are managing the situation. State broadcaster ORTM said Wednesday night an attempted coup was underway in Niamey and that the situation remained confused, but the presidency assured that the president and his family were safe. Adraman's announcement is a culmination of activities surrounding the presidential palace on Wednesday evening, raising uncertainty about the president, Mohamed Bazoum, and his hold on political power. The president released a statement on Wednesday saying some members of the Presidential Guard had started an anti-Republican movement in vain, and that the National Army was ready to attack them if they did not come to their senses. Uneasy calm settled across Niger afterwards, but news of the coup had gone beyond the country's borders. ECOWAS, through its chair, who is also neighboring Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, said the bloc was concerned about what it called an attempted coup and called on the coup plotters to free President Bazoum. He said ECOWAS and the world will not tolerate any situation that incapacitates the democratically elected government of Niger, and that ECOWAS will not accept any action that impedes the smooth functioning of legitimate authority in Niger or any part of West Africa. After his meeting with Beninois president at the presidential villa in Abuja, President Tinubu said that ECOWAS had mandated Patrice Talon to proceed immediately to Niger. The African Union also condemned what it called the coup attempt and called Nigerians and Africans to join forces in unanimous condemnation and for the immediate and unconditional return of soldiers to their barracks. Mohamed Bazoum became Niger's 10th president from 2021 to 2023. Before then, he'd served as the president of one of the major political parties, the PNDS Taraya, and as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of State of the Presidency, and Minister of State of the Interior. He survived a coup attempt before taking office in 2021. The country's been fighting insurgents in West Africa alongside other countries in the region. Past coup leaders in Mali and Burkina Faso, and those who tried and failed in Niger in 2021, said poor progress against militants was a motivation for their bids to seize political power.
Par rapport au respect de l'intégrité physique et morale des autorités déchues conformément aux principes des droits humains. Toutes les institutions issues de la 7e République sont suspendues.
And reactions have been pouring in following the news of the coup d'etat in Niger. The United States, France, and the United Nations have strongly condemned the military takeover. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called for the immediate release of Niger's leader, saying Washington condemns any efforts to seize power by force.
I spoke with President Bazoum earlier this morning and made clear that the United States resolutely supports him as the democratically elected president of Niger. We call for his immediate release. We condemn any effort to seize power by force. We're actively engaged with the Niger government, but also with partners in the region and around the world. We'll continue to do so until the situation is resolved appropriately and peacefully. Whether this constitutes a coup technically or not, I can't say. That's for the lawyers to say. But what it clearly constitutes is an effort to seize power by force and to disrupt the Constitution. So we are calling for the immediate release of President Bazoum. We're calling for the immediate respect for the rule of law and for public safety. And we're doing that in, I think, chorus with many others who've spoken out today as well, including the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. We're monitoring the situation very, very closely. We're, as I said, in communication with governments throughout the region and beyond.
A developing story out of Niger Republic. We'll be getting more on that in the course of the program. But let's quickly move on elsewhere. South Africa's Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, has referred to the nation's high unemployment rate as a ticking time bomb that could jeopardize both social and political stability if not addressed promptly. Speaking at the launch of the South Africa National Human Development Report in Pretoria, Mr. Mashatile emphasized the urgency of tackling the unemployment crisis in the country. The report presented by the United Nations Development Programme particularly focused on harnessing the employability of South African youth. The findings revealed that the high rate of joblessness among young people is significantly impeding economic growth. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, reports.
South Africa grapples with the alarming youth unemployment crisis, with a staggering 62% of its youth population struggling to find employment. This is casting a shadow over the nation's current and future economic prospects. Here's what young people think.
But what I think is they pretend to be. They pretend that they're doing something. I mean, in a sense, sure, I'm not saying they're not doing anything at all, but
I feel like they can implement new strategies to teach people skills. I don't know. I feel like not all skills need to be learned at school, like plumbing, being an electrician.
Requiring like that person to have experience like maybe 3 years experience.
Yeah.
And my question is, how is that person gonna get experience if like he or she has never been or had a job?
Like so many opportunities out there, but not that requires experience. The problem is that people don't actually understand how to get off from like those old ways of working and the new ways.
At the launch of the National Human Development Report 2022, experts and thought leaders took to the stage to shed light on potential effective and innovative solutions that could empower the country's struggling youth.
As we speak today, the National Youth Service Scheme in Ghana produces an average of 90,000 corps members every year. And in Nigeria, it's 300,000 every year. And we sincerely believe it's going to be a game changer in South Africa.
Support innovation. This could include investing in research and development, creating more incubators and accelerators for startups, and make it easier for young people to access venture capital.
South Africa's Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, outlined the government's plans to tackle the youth unemployment challenge.
It is worth recalling that amongst other interventions, the NDP called for the following: the accelerated improvement of the quality of education, skills development, and innovation.
The Chief Executive Officer at the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA, criticized government's slow pace in implementing measures to improve the situation on the ground.
We need to move away from the fallacy that seeks to support businesses at the top, hoping they'll trickle down to the bottom. We must support young people who are young creatives, young artists, young farmers who want to start and scale their own enterprises, because we will never be able to create the number of formal and public employment opportunities to absorb the masses of the unemployed.
With all the talk about what should be done and what has been done about unemployment, one wonders, why does it take long for government to adopt policies that are progressive in order to deal with the unemployment challenge? We can only hope that this event will not be one of those talk shops. From Pretoria, South Africa, Innocent Simosa, Channels Television News.
Let's get back to our top story from Niger, where a coup d'etat has indeed taken place, but the president assuring that democracy will be saved in the country because the people will make sure of that. Well, joining me now is Ambassador Matthew Adoli. Ambassador Adoli is a former Nigerian ambassador to Benin Republic. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much.
So there's already, precedents of coup d'etats in West Africa. Do you think the coup in Niger Republic was inevitable?
Yes, largely it would have been avoided if the coupists or the coup leaders themselves had availed themselves of the unfettered access they have to the president to table their grievances and listen to what the president will tell them, even if their grievances were bottled up. And they should also have known that coup plotting and coup execution now is a criminal offense within the international community, and military governments are no more fashionable. But some of these officers have personal ambitions, and some of them are pushed by the opposition to stage these coups. It was unnecessary to come up with a coup as a solution to the political problems in the country. But a country like Niger, which has been having a recrudescence of coup d'etats, the officers should have been mindful of the fact that a democratic government and democratic governance is the intim now, the whole world. They were think they were a bit greedy and irresponsible. I advise them to go back to their barracks.
And
equally, the president of the country should also try to manage the different political tendencies and divides in his country so as to carry everybody along. I know it is not easy, but then he should have had his ears to the ground so as to know where complaints are coming from. The living conditions of the people should also be taken on board, because for a government to succeed, the living conditions of the people must be good, and the president there must be seen to be doing his best. So what I'm trying to say is that I will not blame the president totally, but I blame also, and I will not blame the coupists. In fact, I blame the coupists in the sense that they have done the wrong thing in the wrong place within the international environment that condemns totally coup plotting as a whole in the international community. Look at the condemnations from the US, ECOWAS, and the African Union. And I think that the right thing has been done by the ECOWAS chairman, our dynamic and performing president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who took proactive measures to send strong signals to these coupists that they have to ultimately return to the barracks. President Tinubu has done the right thing, because only a few days ago, during the ECOWAS meeting, where he was made the ECOWAS chairman, he emphasized that he will take measures to checkmate coup plotting in the sub-region. So I think the coup should have been avoided.
Right, and rightly so. As you did say, President Bola Tinubu, Nigeria's president, decided to take action, and a delegation has been sent to Niger Republic as we speak. The Beninois president, Patrice Talon, is leading that delegation of ECOWAS to Niger Republic. But what can they really do at this point?
Yes, at this point, I believe that the ECOWAS chairman, our own dear President Tinubu, is monitoring the situation. And what I advise that he should do is to continue to consult with his colleagues in the sub-region so that collectively they can engage the coupists and eventually ask them to go back to the barracks. They should table their grievances, and where they remain stubborn and indifferent to the solution being preferred, they should be kicked out in one form or the other. Sanctions, restriction of movement, no dealings with the international community, all sorts of measures should be taken to ensure that they live power. And I think the president, chiefs of defense staff of the sub-region should meet, the council of ministers of the sub-region should meet, and then advise the authority of the heads of states, of which our president is the chairman, on further actions to take.
Right. Thank you so much, former Nigerian ambassador to Togo and not Benin Republic. Thank you for your time today on Network Africa. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is hosting African leaders at a special summit in St. Petersburg alongside the war in Ukraine. Food security will be high on the agenda, as well as operations of the Wagner Group on the continent. Addressing Russia's decision to withdraw from a UN-brokered deal to allow safe passage for grain shipments from Ukraine's southern ports and eventually to Africa, Mr. Putin said that Russia can plug the gap, adding that Russia will be able to provide free grain to 6 African countries in the next few months.
African diplomatic delegations, including those from Ethiopia, South Sudan and Zimbabwe, have arrived in Russia to take part in the country's second Russia-Africa Forum. Similarly, The presidents of Central African Republic, Uganda, as well as leaders from Libya, the Republic of Congo, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso joined other delegations for the summit in St. Petersburg. Meanwhile, Nigeria's delegation, led by Vice President Kashim Shettima, also landed at the northern city's airport. On the sidelines of the meeting, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The gathering takes place days after Russian President Vladimir Putin quit the Black Sea Agreement that had enabled Ukraine and Russia, a major grain exporter, to ship food out of its southern ports, despite what Russia calls a military operation in Ukraine. Speaking at the start of the African leaders' meeting, President Putin says he wants to see the African Union become a full member of the G20 Club of Nations in September. Mr. Putin also says Russia can replace Ukrainian grain exports to Africa and supply 6 countries for free.
We realize the importance of an uninterrupted supply of foodstuffs to African countries. Therefore, we have always paid and will continue to pay special attention to supplying our African friends with wheat, barley, maize, and other grain crops, including supplying as humanitarian aid. We will be ready to provide Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, Central African Republic, Eritrea, with 25 to 50,000 tons of grain for free, and we will ensure free delivery of these products to consumers.
The Russian leader says his country is expecting a record grain harvest this year and is ready to fill the gap for African countries, both on a commercial and aid basis, and honor what he said was Moscow's critical role in global food security.
Let's talk now to Rigato Makina, VOA correspondent in Moscow. You're welcome to Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so let's begin with Russia's aim for hosting this meeting. What is the hope to gain by bringing together African leaders and delegations to discuss, a wide range of issues?
Well, it's clear to me that Russia is trying to have here a very a propagandistic summit to present the world that Russia is not isolated. For Russia, it's very, very important to show in the actual context of confrontation with the West, confrontation with European Union and United States, and obviously NATO, to show that Russia is not alone, that Russia needs to show the world that it's not only China, it's not only Brazil or India, the BRICS countries that are together with Russia. There are very much another countries as Africa, especially Russia wants to show that almost all African continent is supporting the Russian position. That is, of course, very far from the truth. African countries have bilateral issues and agreements with Russia, but that don't mean that support the actual behavior of Russia in Ukraine. But Moscow wants to present this summit as this.
No doubt, Ricardo, the grain supply deal will top the list of discussions. How is this expected to benefit Africans?
Well, Russia, President Putin speak today very clearly about this grain that will be delivered for free to several African countries. So, of course, obviously, no doubt that it's something positive for the country that will be elected for this free grain delivery. But the most important, as Russia put it, of course, as Moscow wants to European countries, Western countries, to stop to ban the Russian fertilizers. Russian fertilizers that are key, that are very important for the food market. And Russia insists in the idea that Western countries that are blocking the export from Russia of these fertilizers. So if this happens, Moscow, as Moscow put it, will help to put down the prices on fertilizers and in food prices.
And another concern here is the operations of the Wagner Group on the continent. Ever since the mutiny, relations between the Kremlin and Wagner has changed. Help us understand what the situation is now.
Well, understand the situation with Wagner is complicated, I think, for everyone, even here in Russia. So from till yesterday, we can think that Prigozhin is finished. The Wagner business in Africa is finished. But today we saw Prigozhin for 24 hours, the biggest enemy of Putin a month ago when he tried to come to Moscow, and he was meeting with African counterparts. So it's clear that Wagner is still alive, and it's possible to understand why. Because for Russian state, Wagner is an asset. It's something that can use, and Russia has no replacement for Wagner in Africa. Wagner is working in Africa for a lot of years already. So change this for a new mercenary group or for a new business will take few years. So like or not, for Kremlin, they need Wagner in Africa.
Right. VOA correspondent Ricardo Makina, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
South Sudan is racing to complete its democratic transition with the conduct of free, fair, and credible elections at the end of 2024. However, intercommunal conflict continues to cast its shadow across this young nation. Given last month's outbreak of violence in the UN protection site in Malakal and subsequent rumors of youth mobilization from neighboring Jonglei, the governors of both Upper Nile and Jonglei have met in Juba to dispel misinformation and find synergies to work together for peace. They called for every citizen's verified and sensible use of social media platforms, cautioning them to refrain from using digital means to spread misinformation.
South Sudanese should refrain from using violence as a means of resolving issues, and that we're calling on UN to cooperate with the governor of Upper Nile so that those who are smuggling guns inside the POC can be asked to bring those guns out, so that civilians live inside the POC without fear of being attacked or being killed. On Jonglei side, there are rumors that civilians or youth are mobilizing themselves. I want to say today that this is not true. It's a lie. We don't have any youth that are mobilizing themselves, that are planning to attack. There is nothing of that kind.
That's our show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.